wild fooling is not to my taste. What I'm after out here is no business of yours." "There you are," Jonas replied. "I knew you were born in Nerike, and they're all gloomy and miserable there, and have no real pleasure in the jolly sailor's life. Just wait, Elis. I'll send someone out to you. You'll soon be got off the bewitched bench to which Necken has nailed you." It was not long before a very smart, pretty girl came out of the tavern door and sat herself down beside the gloomy Elis, who had sunk down again on the bench, dumb and self-absorbed. It was plain from the girl's finery, and her whole manner, that she had, alas, abandoned herself to wicked pleasures. But her dissolute life had not yet cast its blight upon the surprisingly lovely and tender features of her sweet countenance. There was no trace of repulsive boldness, nay, rather a quiet yearning melancholy in the gaze of her dark eyes. "Elis, are you not going to take any part in your comrades' merriment? Do you mean to say that no joy stirs in your breast now that you are home again, and have escaped the menacing dangers of the treacherous sea waves, and stand once more on your native soil?" So the girl spoke in a soft, gentle voice, and wound her arm around the young man. As if awakened from a profound dream, Elis Fröbom looked into the girl's eyes. He took her hand and pressed it to his breast. It was easy to see that the girl's sweet whisper had found its way to his very heart. "Ah," he began at last, as if recollecting himself. "Ah, there is no more joy, no more pleasure for me now. At least, I cannot possibly enter into my comrades' boisterous revels. Do you go indoors, my good child. Rejoice and shout with the others if you can. But leave dull, melancholy Elis outside here alone. He will only spoil all your pleasure. But wait, I like you very well, and you must remember me when I go back to sea." With the words, he took 2 bright ducats from his pocket, pulled a beautiful Indian handkerchief out of his bosom, and gave both to the girl. But the sparkling tears stood in her eyes. She rose up, laid the ducats on the bench, and said, "Nay, keep your ducats. They only make me sad. But the pretty neckcloth, that I'll wear for your dear sake, and you'll not find me here another year, when you hold your hönsning here in Haga." With that, the girl, instead of turning back into the tavern, departed slowly along the street, both hands pressed to her face. Elis Fröbom sank anew into his gloomy reverie, and shouted at last, when the rejoicing in the tavern became loud and furious with a vengeance, "Oh, if I only lay buried at the deepest bottom of the sea, for there is no one alive now for me to be glad with." Thereupon a deep, hoarse voice spoke close behind him. "You must have had great misfortune indeed, young man, that you wish for death at your time, when your life ought to have just begun to be at its best." Elis looked round and observed an old miner, who was leaning with folded arms against the boarded wall of the tavern, and was looking down at him with an earnest, penetrating glance. As Elis continued to look at the old man, it seemed to him as if some well-known form were advancing to him, with friendly consolation in the deep, wild solitude in which he had imagined himself lost. He collected himself, and told how his father had been a clever mate, but had perished in the storm from which he himself had escaped as by a miracle. His 2 brothers had perished on the field of battle, and he had been the only support of his poor bereaved mother, with the ample wages which he received after each voyage to the East Indies. For of course he had to remain a seaman. He had been meant for one from his earliest childhood, and so he thought it a great piece of luck that he had been able to enter the service of the East India Company. This time his gains had turned out greater than ever, and each sailor had received a good sum of money in addition to his pay, so that he, his pockets full of ducats, had hurried off in great delight to the little cottage where his mother lived. But strange faces had peeped at him from the window, and a young woman, who at length opened the door, and to whom he made himself known, had informed him in cold, harsh tones that his mother had died 3 months before, and that he could get possession at the town-house of a few trifles which remained over after her funeral expenses had been settled. His mother's death had rent his heart. He felt himself forsaken by all the world.